Mr. Godfrey here. In this video I'm going to do the even problems from your worksheet, so if you want some help doing those, I'll be giving you some help. So on number 2 here, we look at our denominators of 2, 4, and 16. We don't have any parentheses, so we don't have to distribute first. The least common multiple is 16, so multiplication property of equality. I multiply every single term by a 16. And again, I like to write them down just to remind me. And again, don't forget this integer. Even though it's not a fraction, I do have to multiply it by 16. And again, that's usually where students will make their mistake, is they're so focused on just removing fractions, they'll forget that, yes, we are removing fractions, but we're doing it by the multiplication property of equality, which says you have to multiply every term by that number. So in the first equation, this is divisible by 4, and the 16 is divisible by 4, leaving me 4 times 1, which is 4k. 16 times 1 is 16. The 2 is divisible by 2, and the 16 is divisible by 2, leaving me 8 times 3, which is 24. And then the 16 is divisible by 16. Both of those reduce to 1. 1 times 29 is 29. So now I can do the rest of the problem without any fractions. So we'll simplify the left side of the equation by adding like terms. So that's going to be 40. We'll then subtract 40 from both sides. So 4k is going to be equal to negative 11. And then we'll divide by 4. So k is equal to a negative 11 over 4. So you'll see we may end up with a fraction at the end, but at least here in the middle we didn't have to deal with all those fractions. So it makes it a little bit easier in solving equations if we can remove those first. So let's take a look at number 4. With number 4, you'll notice that we do have parentheses, so we're going to have to distribute those first before we can move on, or before we can remove the fraction. So we'll go ahead and do that first. So this doesn't say change. This mixed number will go ahead and change to its improper fraction form like we've done in our previous assignments. And then we'll distribute here. So I can't do any pre-reducing, so I'll just go ahead and multiply this. So that's going to be 3/8. Now the 3/4 times the 2 over 1, I can reduce the 2 with this 4. So that leaves me 3/2 times 1, which is 3/2. So now that I've distributed, I can determine the least common multiple. My denominators of 2, 4, and 8 have a least common multiple of 8. So then I'm going to apply the multiplication property of equality and multiply each of these fractions by the number 8. And again, because these are all multiples of 8, those denominators are all going to reduce to 1. 4 is divisible by 4, 8 is divisible by 4, leaving me 2 times 1, which is 2. 2 is divisible by 2, 8 is divisible by 2, leaving me 4 times 3, which is 12. 8 is divisible by 8, and 8 is divisible by 8, leaving me 1 times 3. And the 2 is divisible by 2, this 8 is divisible by 2, leaving me 3 times 4, which is 12. So again, you can see all of the fractions are nicely been eliminated, and so we can go the rest of the way without having to worry about fractions. In solving for m, I'm going to add 12m to both sides. That will keep the m positive on the other side there. So that's going to be negative 2. Adding 12m is 15m minus 12. And then I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So when I do that, 12 and negative 2 is 10. It's equal to 15m. And then I'm going to divide by 15. So that reduces, so m is equal to 10 over 15. But I want to reduce that. Dividing by 5, I get 2/3. So m is equal to 2/3. So again, in the middle portion here, I didn't have to deal with the fractions because I found my least common multiple and applied the multiplication property of equality first. Alright, we'll do number 6 next. Working on number 6 next, we again have parentheses, so we are going to need to distribute first before we can remove those fractions. So we're going to stick with 1/3 n for right now, and 215 over 16. and then we'll distribute 5/4 times 1n is 5/4 n, and then 5/4 times 3/2. Because we're multiplying, we could pre-reduce, but nothing pre-reduces, so we'll just multiply numerator times numerator, and then denominator times denominator, and then we have minus 4n. Now that the parentheses are gone, we determine the least common multiple. I've got a 3, 16, 4, and 8. Oh boy, what's my least common multiple going to be there? I think we're going to look at 48. And again, at this point it really doesn't matter if it's the least common multiple, just as long as it is a multiple. So we're going to multiply by 48 here. Again, we need to do this to every single term, even this 4n at the end, in order to make sure that we're correctly applying the multiplication property of equality. So the 3 is divisible by 3 and 48 is divisible by 3, leaving me 16 times 1, which is 16n. The 16 is divisible by 16, the 48 is divisible by 16, leaving me 3. So 3 times 215 is going to be 645. And then 4 goes into 4 once, and 4 goes into 48 12 times. So that's going to leave me 12 times 5, which is 60n. 8's divisible by 8, 48's divisible by 8, leaving me 6. So 6 times 15 is 1630 is 90. And then 48 times 4 is 160 and 32, so that's going to be 192 n. Now, those numbers may seem kind of big and kind of difficult to deal with, but if you think about 48 being our least common multiple, if we change all of these fractions to denominators of 48, these numbers would all be just as big, only they'd be in fractions. So this is going to make our life a little bit easier, even though it doesn't look like it at the moment. So now that we have this, we can go ahead and solve the equation. We want to simplify each side of the equation first by adding like terms. We don't have any like terms over here on the left, but on the right we do. We have, let's see, we're going to have the 90, and then we're going to add 60, and negative 192 is going to be negative 132n. Okay? Then, in order to keep the n positive all the way through the problem, I'm going to add 132n to both sides. All right, so 132 adding to 16 over here, 132 is going to be 148n plus 645 is equal to 90. I then am going to subtract 645 from both sides. So that's going to give me, let's see, still going to leave me with 148n over here. And then we're going to have a negative 645 minus 90 is going to be 555. So this is going to be negative 555. And then we're going to divide by 148. I'm running out of room here. Let's go up here. So we're going to divide both of these by 148. So n is going to be a negative 555 divided by, or over, 148. In order to reduce this fraction, we need to find a common factor of both of these. Now, I looked ahead a little bit just to kind of help me out, so you'd have to kind of work this one out on your own. So both of these are divisible by 37. 555 divided by 37 is 15, and 148 divided by 37 is 4. So that means n is going to be negative 15 over 4. So that's my final answer, and I arrived at that by removing the fractions first. So we'll take a look at number 8 next. Looking at number 8, we have parentheses on both sides of the equation, so we'll have to distribute both of those before we can remove the fraction. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we're going to have a 5/3. Now the 5's reduce, so doing some pre-reducing in this first fraction, I'm going to have a negative 3/4 x. so we can pre-reduce. Now remember, that's for that. I have to go back now and use the original fraction then to distribute to the next one. So negative 5/4 times 1 is negative 5/4. Over here, this we do not have any pre-reducing available to us, so this is going to be 15 over 4x, and then we're going to have plus 5 halves. Now that the parentheses are removed, we can use, or we want to determine the least common multiple, which is 4. So we're going to multiply every term in our equation by the number 4. So this reduces to 2, leaving me 2 times 3, which is 6x. These 4's reduce, leaving me 3x. These 4's reduce, leaving me 5. These 4's reduce, leaving me 15x. And 2 reduces with 4, leaving me 2. 2 times 5 is 10. Then I'm going to simplify each side of the equation by adding like terms. So I've got 3x minus 5 over here, and 15x plus 10. Then I'm going to move the 3x, or subtract 3x from both sides to keep it positive. So that's going to be negative 5 is equal to 12x plus 10. I'll then subtract 10 from both sides. So 12x is equal to negative 15, and then we'll divide by 12. So the 12's reduce, so x is equal to negative 15 over 12, which can be reduced by dividing by 3. So it's going to be negative 5/4 as my final answer. On number 10, again, we have 2 parentheses, so we'll need to remove both of those before we can move on. So we don't have any pre-reducing here available to us. Positive times negative is a negative, so that's going to be 28 over 5r, and then 2 times 1 is 2. In our next fraction here, we can reduce the 9 and the 3 first because we're multiplying. So that's going to leave me negative then 33 over 5r. Now again, I reduced it for that, but I have to start over when I'm going to the next number here. So this is going to be 9/5 times 1, which is 9/5. Our common denominator, or least common multiple, is going to be 10 here. So we're going to need to multiply every term in the equation by a 10. The 2 reduces with this 10, leaving me 5. So that's going to be 5 times negative 5, which is negative 25r. 5 reduces here 2, so that's going to be negative 56r. 2 times 10 is 20. Don't forget that integer there. 5 reduces with the 10, 2, so that's going to be negative 66r. And then 5 reduces here, so that's going to leave me 2 times 9, which is 18. We'll then combine like terms on each side, simplifying. So this is going to be negative 25, and negative 56 is going to be negative 81r, plus 20 is negative 66r plus 18. Then in order to keep everything positive, I'm going to add 66r to both sides. So that's going to make, whoops, that's not going to make everything positive, is it? I should back up there. I want to keep everything positive. So what I'm going to do is add 81r to both sides. We'll come up with the same number on either side, except this side will be positive. So 81 minus 66 is going to be 15r, and so that leaves me 20 over here and 18 over here. Then I'm going to subtract 18 from both sides. So 2 is equal to 15r, and then dividing by 15 gives me my answer. R is equal to 2 over 15, which cannot be reduced. So that wraps up the even problems on this worksheet. You can go ahead and tackle those odd ones on your own.